Have you ever wondered why the bachelor's degree has pretty much become useless? Why has tuition been climbing up so high, meanwhile income has been completely flatlined? And why in the world would banks be willing to give like literally tens of thousands, if not six figures worth of debt to random 17 and 18-year-olds? Doesn't make any sense to me, right? Because if you want to get a business loan, guess what, honey? You jumping through loops, okay? So in this video, let's address all those questions and a little bit more. I want to take a deeper dive into kind of the history of student loans and student debt and if this can even be forgiven. So make sure you keep it locked for all that and more. It's Crystal with the Cash Compass. All right, welcome back. I am here to teach you all things that you should have learned in school about money, but for whatever reason, they forgot to mention it. Please be sure to subscribe, and if you're really about your money, hit that bell. We talk about everything from investing to personal finance to the economy. Let's get into it. Now, I know if you haven't heard this directly from a grandparent or your parent, you heard it somewhere around the world where they're like, back in my day, I just worked through college. I didn't have to get any loans. And you're probably like, all right, that sounds good, right? In theory, I would love to work and go to college and pay it off and come out debt free, but that's just not what reality is. So let's take a look at what has changed since people could pay off these things, okay? And it really centers, of course, around debt. Debt has been such a household kind of norm right now, and it's just crazy how much normalization can make things that once were absolutely crazy seem normal. Like, for example, they never had to pay student loans, right? Some people never had to even pay for car loans. Like this whole debt and credit card system is relatively new. So we've become normalized to it. So now it just feels like, okay, let me get a loan to get my car. But that's not how it used to be. And honestly, the student loans is only one part of the problem because it's not really a huge deal if we have loans, right? I mean, whatever, you get a loan, you pay it off. What really became problematic was the government guaranteeing the loans. Because before, what happened was, you know, you go to your local bank, you ask them for a loan, and they would give it to you, right? Now the government's like, okay, listen, if that 17-year-old or 18-year-old, you know, has a degree in art and then graduates and doesn't get any money from that, we'll pay it. And mind you, when they say we will pay it, people don't get this. I want to drill it in. I'm sorry if you watch my videos and you're tired of hearing this. When the government says they're paying for something, it is us. It is us. And when I say us, I don't mean the corporations. When I say us, I don't mean people who are, have like lower incomes. It's the middle class. So now the banks are in a pretty cool position, right? They're like, I'm basically guaranteed to make money here. If I don't get the payment from this random kid, well, all of America, open up your pocketbook, right? Collect my check. So what happens then? Now we're just giving loans out to anybody. You have a pulse? I can't hear it, but close enough. You have a passion for tying shoes and you want to get a whole degree on that? No problem. They just started giving out loans because they knew they were going to get their money back. So obviously that led to more supply, but it also led to more demand, okay? Because aside from banks actually loaning out this money, people were more interested, right? Some people can actually go into college, right? Because before, Blacks and women weren't even able to get into college, right? So there was more demand because more people were actually allowed to go. More schools were actually opening up. And once you couple the demand with them supplying the loans, you have a perfect recipe for more tuition getting into these schools. And when you have too much demand, of course, you have to kind of try to mitigate that, right? Because everybody can't get into this college. We only have 30 seats. So that they raise the tuition prices. And even if you don't have a whole bunch of people trying to get into one school, there's really no incentive to keep the price the same, right? Because you have these banks giving these loans out that are guaranteed by us, okay? So no matter what, the people from the universities know I'm going to get my money because these are backed by the government. So where is the incentive to charge less? No matter what money I charge, I'm going to get my money because the banks are going to give me the money and the banks are going to get their money from, if not Joe Schmo, all of America. So let's get it. And that is really why banks can go ahead and get loose with their lending standards because they don't really have much downside to loaning you the money. Best case, they get it from Joe Schmo. Worst case, they get it from somebody else, but they're getting it no matter what. So they're in a really, like I said, the banks seem to always win. And that's also why I feel like bachelor's degrees now at this point have become, I'm not going to say useless, but what I will say, it's kind of just become the norm, right? What once was the bar is now the floor. It's like you have to have a bachelor's degree if you want to do anything these days because so much people have been able to get one. It kind of lost its, scarcity. I always struggle with that word. It lost its power a little bit because everybody was pouring in. What once was really prestigious, like, oh my God, you got into college, like you got a bachelor's degree, is now, I'm going back to school because I'm bored. I just want to get another degree. I just want some financial aid, So it's become a little bit less important, unfortunately, because now we have a system where, it's kind of forced everybody to go into college. And of course, I don't necessarily think that you have to go to college. That's what worked for me. But, in this day and age, you can get really creative and have an e-commerce business. There's plenty of ways to make money, but I digress. The point is, for people who still have that ideology that they have to go to college, it's become more expensive and you can get much less, right, with it. Because our income has not really moved. But the price of tuition has, 10x'd. And that's why it's unfortunate, because governments don't guarantee small businesses, which actually make up the majority of America's businesses, right? They don't guarantee your loans, and that's why it's much more harder for somebody to get a small business loan rather than get a student loan, because banks know how to assess risk, and they know that with your business, a lot of businesses actually fail within the first 5 years. I think the great majority, maybe 70 or 60%, I don't remember what the statistic was, but a lot of businesses fail, so they're like, I'm not going to give you money if I'm not going to get my money back. It makes sense, but it is unfortunate, because you're going to target people who are young, who have just moved out of the house, who don't really have that much financial education because it's not taught in schools, and you're going to get them set up for debt, right? I thought college was supposed to be your fresh start. It's supposed to give you more opportunities. No, you come out of that mofo stressed and buried in debt. You are a debt slave. So it's like, is that a fair trade-off? I don't know. If you're making the right investment, it could be. I'm going to get into that in a moment. America seems to really go hard on this whole debt-based system. Again, debt is so good. And to a certain degree, I can agree with that. Certain debt, if you are calculating it for a return, is great. If you are buying stuff off your credit card and you're in debt because of them new shoes, obviously that doesn't make any sense, right? But if you are calculating, like for me, obviously I knew accounting was a great profession once I coupled it with the CPA exam. If I didn't take that CPA and get my CPA license, I wouldn't be able to make as much money, right? So I knew I had to couple those two together. I knew how much money I was going to make, but a lot of people don't actually calculate things out like that, and it's not really advertised that way, right? College isn't really looked at as an investment. It's more like just the next step. Like, you just have to go to college once you graduate, instead of giving you all the options that you can do in this world. So what is the solution, right? Because of course I can talk all day about what the problem is, but how are we going to solve that problem? There's a couple of different things that people are suggesting, so let's talk about them. Number one being, free, right? Just F it, everybody goes to college for free. People want us to treat the education system something like how we treat, public health care, public schools, firefighters, and police. And that is basically whether or not you actually take advantage of any of these services, you still have to pay for it. So if you're of the belief that we should put, college education up there with having police and having firefighters, then yes, it would make sense to have free schooling. But again, it's never going to be free, because now what's going to happen is, instead of us guaranteeing only a few student loans, right? Because not everybody has government-backed student loans. Some people still go through private institutions, right? But if we have it free for everybody, now we are going to be responsible for every single person's college degree. And that is going to mean more taxes. So if you are okay with having free college, you also have to be okay with potentially dramatically increasing the tax rate, okay? And I want to show you an example of what I'm talking about. Looking at this chart, you'll see the closest country to us that offers free college has a tax rate of 37%. So would you be willing to raise your taxes by 6% or 20%? Because worst case, on this chart, we have a tax rate of 55%, okay? And mind you, we're not even factoring in the state level taxes. So are you willing to give up 6 to 20% of your income so that these Americans can get free college, right? And of course, I personally don't think we can just say, all right, everybody's getting free college and leave it at that. There has to be some sort of restrictions, right? In other countries, what they've done is not everybody pursuing every single type of degree can get this funding, okay? So it's like people who are being doctors or lawyers or things like that, they actually have access to the free education. But if you're trying to be like maybe an art major, not so much. Other countries have made it more difficult to get into college. So now having your bachelor's degree holds a little bit more weight in those countries, because it's not as easy as just, filling an application in and having a heartfelt letter. So if we did offer free college, in order for people to actually value it, because most people don't value free things, right? So in order for people to actually value having this college degree and not have the problem that we have now, which is like bachelor's degrees are not important. What if everybody can get in? Now it's going to be like, well, you have to have a master's in order to get anything done, right? So we have to have some restrictions in place, right? But what if you're somebody who's like, no, bump the restrictions. I don't really care what's going on. I do not want to pay for everybody's tuition, right? I don't want to give away 6 to 20% of my income. I'm not interested. All right, so what's the option then? Well, we can have bank reform, where maybe the government is not actually guaranteeing all these loans, or they're selective with what loans that they actually guarantee, so that people can't just not pay and then put the weight on someone else's shoulders, right? But I think that is a pipe dream at the very most. I don't see banks giving up that lucrative business, preying on the innocent and the uneducated people, unfortunately, right? So what does that leave us with? To me, that leaves us with just really going back to the education about it and looking at this as an investment. And if you are a parent who has a teenage kid, or if you are actually considering going to college, look at it as an investment. I guarantee you, if I were to ask a couple of 16 or 17-year-olds what do they want to go to college for, and they told me, and I asked them, well, what's the median income for that profession, they probably would be like, what's a median? So I think people don't put enough research into this. Like, which colleges actually give you the most financial aid? What kind of grants or scholarships can you apply for? Because a lot of scholarships actually go ungiven, if that's the right word, because people don't even apply for them. Because a lot of people think, oh, maybe someone else got it. That actually happened to me. I applied for a scholarship and I thought I wouldn't get it because I figured people would be applying. And it was only me and one other girl. And I got it. So look at the options for funding that do not include going into an obscene amount of debt, right? Or maybe even going to community college. Community college is lit. I wish I knew that. I went to a 4-year straight off rip, and I spent the first 2 years learning. I can't even tell you what, to be honest. It was honestly a waste of money. Now, I could have gone to community college and paid a fraction of the price and been in less student loan debt, right? But I wasn't really taught that. It wasn't really looked at as a good thing. It actually was looked at like, oh my God, if you go to community college, you're an idiot, right? So I'm no disrespect, of course. If I went back, I would definitely do that and still go to my 4-year university. No one cares if you went to community college for your associates. And just like you would look at, the cost of going to college, look at the cost for not going to college, right? What are you giving up? The opportunity cost of going to college. What if you are in a career that doesn't necessarily need a college degree, and you might get better experience from going into the workforce directly and getting those 4 years of experience versus going to school and learning it the book way? And as far as loans getting forgiven, is that a possibility, or can it be done? Yes. I think we've all seen by now that they can just, charge up that money printer and let that thing go loose, okay? They've printed more, actually, for all the stimulus than we have in student loan debt. So I'm trying to figure out, wait a minute. So y'all had that money laying around somewhere, and obviously that's not how it works. If you watch my channel, I don't feel that way. But if y'all could have just came out with 1.6 trillion to give to whoever, why don't you wipe this away? And we just won't have to talk about it ever again. I'm trying to figure out why we can't do that. So yeah, it's possible, but of course, I think the government, the Federal Reserve, they pick and choose winners out here, and it doesn't ever seem to be us. But that will do it. If you like this video, then please like this video and share it with your friends. And if anything else going on, you know what to do. Go ahead and binge watch me. And until next time, keep your money up.